Clash of the Classics.
Hey everyone, that's right, I recognize that opening. It's time for Clash of the Classics. It's become one of my favorite segments here on the show. If you're new to the show, in fact, if you've just discovered us, maybe this is your first time visiting with us, great to have you guys along. You're going to find every week we roll the clock back. We pit two classic models against one another. Then we go head-to-head with styling. We look at powertrain stuff. We look at design features, interior stuff, just whatever kind of comes to our head. And then we vote on the car that we like best. And as always, each and every week, we invite you to let us know which car you prefer. You can go to our Facebook page or here right on YouTube channel and let us know which car you like better. These battles are fueled by the Automatic Transmission Rebuilders Association. The ATRA is the largest automatic transmission network in the world. You can find them anytime at atra.com. All right, today's going to be some fun. It's all about the 1968 Dodge Charger RT battling that 1968 Ss Chevelle. These two cars, I'll tell you right from the jump street, Chris, these two cars, for me, both of them, I have I guess an emotional attachment to because both of them were early in my life. But it's going to be tough. One thing is for certain, it's probably one of the best battles I think that we've had in some time. I'm going to have some fun.
It's definitely going to be the closest call that we've had. We've had some landslides, we've had some, kind of 70-30, but this is going to be really cutting it close.
I would have to agree. Well, let's jump out here with the Dodge. This was the first year for the second generation. It's Dodge's B-body, and I think for me personally, anyway, it's one that most people recognize as the vintage Charger. When you talk about a Dodge Charger, very few people will think of a 2017 or a 2018 or even a 2016 Dodge Charger. Typically, they're going to think of a 68 or a 69. The 66 and the 67s, they were cool, but to me, probably not quite as muscular, a little slender. They were more of like the Cornet body style. Didn't have that aggressive look. I don't think Dodge realized in 66 and in 67 just what a huge hit they had on their hands. It wasn't until they redesigned it in 68 that it really just started popping. But, we had one over at our Horsepower Performance Division a couple of weeks ago. You and I got a chance to look at it. This thing was sweet. Original owner, an original RT with the Dodge 440. Of course, it wasn't the 426 Hemi engine, but the 440 Magnum engine. Still a very nice car. All original and original owner.
And it's orange.
And it's toxic orange. Yes, indeed. Pretty cool car. But 68 was the first year that the Charger began to distance itself from the Coronet. We talked about that a moment ago. Dodge abandoned that fastback design in favor of what they called a flying buttress design. It was kind of more like for those folks out there who can visualize the early 1966 and the 1967 Pontiac GTO. That's kind of the look that they were going for. The RT, definitely the model to have. The 440 Magnum, or as we said a moment ago, that 426 Hemi were the two engine options for the RT. And in my opinion, dude, if you're going to buy the Charger, especially back then, would have been better to buy the RT. But here's the thing. In 1968, that was a $640 option. Now, I don't know what that would equate to in today's world or today's money market, but I would think that's probably somewhere like
It's got to be at least a couple thousand.
I would think probably a $4,000 or $5,000 upgrade, maybe even more. And in 68, I can see where a lot of people may have abandoned that idea. Looking back, and hindsight's always 20/20, I'm sure that the base model Charger owners are kicking themselves going, man, why didn't I buy the RT? Because it's worth so much more money today.
Yeah. Now, is the increase in value today bigger? Is it a bigger jump than the amount of money that was available to upgrade it down?
In fact, the increase in value has been beyond exponential, if there is such a thing, from what it was originally. Because you had the $640. Let's say that it was a $10,000 upgrade. Man, we're talking 6 digits. 6 digits today in terms of value on a 426, an original 426, or even that original 440 that we looked at. I mean, that's a $115,000 car. And it's a number 2 car. It's not Concours. I mean, it's not perfect. But this is, and we're talking about the car that we have over at the horsepower division. This thing, in fact, I think we can probably put a picture of it. In fact, I know we can. We can put a picture of it up on our horsepower page. But the 440 was rated at 375 horsepower and 490 pound-feet of torque. The RT stickered for $3,506, and then if you ordered that 426 package, it bumped the cost another $604.
Worth it.
For that's about 20% more. That's a 20% increase. In 68, Dodge sold almost 100,000 Chargers, and of those, only about 17,000 of them are RT models. And of those 17,000 RT models, only about 500 of them were ordered with the 426 dual quad, two 4-barrel carburetors up on top. So if you have an original 426 Hemi and a 68 Dodge, it's inestimable. Whatever it is that you want, I mean, you're going to get it. You take that, and you rarely see them at any sort of an auction because of how rare they are. In fact, there were a total of 211 426 Hemi cars built with the 4-speed manual transmission, and then check this out, 264 that were built with the automatic, that Torque Flight 727 that ended up being that you talk about a bulletproof automatic. That definitely was the automatic. It's still, even to this day, that is the leader in automatics, especially at a drag strip. But you would have thought back in those days, at least for me, 211 cars would have been the automatic, while 264 was the manual, but it was just the other way around.
And now let's back up just a bit. You said there was about 100,000 sold?
Correct, 100,000.
Now that's actually that's about the same number as our last clash with the 66 GTO.
Correct.
About the same. So they're moving some out of product.
Yeah, they were definitely moving some iron back in those days, but 100,000 of them, so you figure there's, what is that, 83,000 were just the base model Charger, not the RT model. And again, those people, they're thinking, oh man, if I only would have known then what I know now, which of course is it's the adage that everybody adheres to anymore. But 425 horsepower was what the rating was of the 426 Hemi. And it was so powerful, the relative torque capacity was so intense, Dodge had to reinforce the rear of the car at the leaf spring anchor points to kind of handle all the punishment that the engine was able to deliver. Powertrain specs are cool, but man, I'll tell you what, dude, to me, the best part of the Charger were its looks. When you combine that with huge power, it's easy to understand, at least for me, here today, easy to understand why these cars have become so valuable.
And here's the other thing I'd be interested in, too. I'm going to kind of age myself or date myself. I'm just on the cusp of, on the heels of 30. But I'm curious to know, because, in my generation, the Fast and the Furious, the first one, the only good one they ever made, heavily featured that Charger in the end. I don't know if it was 68 or 69, but I'd be curious to see, did the demand or the popularity increase after that movie? Because if I'm not mistaken, it was 2001 that movie came out. Mm-hmm. I mean, either way, 2000, 2002, it's somewhere in that window. Either 30 years off from the original release date. I'm just curious to see if the price went up, if the popularity went up.
Yeah, because of the huge success of the movie.
Yeah,
because I think that, in fact, if I'm not mistaken, that is the hugest grossing movie set. All of the movie, what they call it.
Yeah, they did like 8 of them.
Yeah, I think. Yeah, in fact, there is 8 of them. Yeah, but all of those movies together, I think, make up the highest grossing of any film ever in the history of planet Earth. So possibly
really well.
Yeah, that's a good point. I would be interested in that as well, because they did use that car. It was a black one with the blower sticking out of it.
And I wonder how many they used, because they flipped it.
Yeah.
And if you don't get that right the first time, we need another Charger over here. George Costanza.
Well, typical MSRP for the RT back in 68 was between $3,500 and $4,200. Today, a good number 2 car that's not an RT, just a good number 2 Charger, can easily start at $80,000 and then go from there. We've heard of the Challengers that are selling for $1.2 all the way to $3 million. I don't know if the Charger fits into there, but easily into 6 figures, 115, 120, 130, 150,000, depending on what the car was, some of the provenance in the car, what was some of the story behind it, obviously originality and those types of things. But what a car to have. Before I go any further, though, folks, I want to mention that today's Clash of the Classics made possible by the largest automatic transmission network in the world. They are the Automatic Transmission Rebuilders Association, or quite simply the ATRA. ATRA reminds me to remind you, the next time you've got a transmission problem, you even think you have a transmission concern, don't leave it in the hands of someone who might not be qualified or certified. Got to get you over to atra.com. You're going to find thousands of ATRA member transmission service providers coast to coast right there on the home screen. Head on over to atra.com. That's the Automatic Transmission Rebuilders Association. They're going to get you fixed up quick. All right, let's talk about that 1968 Ss Chevelle. Now, here's another car that you'd almost have to be deaf, blind, and mute to not like this car, because this thing is probably one of the coolest muscle cars ever built. Chevelle made its debut in 1964. Kind of like the Charger we just talked about a moment ago, it wasn't until 1968 that it got its muscular redesign. 68 was the first year for the second generation. Chevy produced just under 61,000 SS 396 Sport Coupes. The engine was heavily sought after back then. It's the big block 396 rated at 375 horsepower and 410 pound-feet of torque. Some folks have written in and told us that the 402 big block was available in 68, but I'm here to tell you now, if that's what you think, you're off by a couple of years. The 402 basically is a bored-out 396 big block, but it wasn't made available until 1970. So had that argument recently with a listener. Want to kind of back that up just right now. The 402, yes, it was available, but not in 1968. That wasn't available until 1970. But then even then, they continued to label it as the 396 in their smaller cars. And then in some of the larger lineup, Chevy called it the Turbojet 400. I'll never forget that in the larger cars that was. But even though, it was the same engine. But none of that happened until 1970. But that's back to the 1968 Chevelle SS 396. This is another beast of a muscle car, completely redesigned exterior. Immediately a hit with the American public. Definitely, at least for me, one of the tried and true workhorses in the classic car world. We see it with a pretty high degree of frequency in the car shows that we do. You do a lot of video work, a lot of camera work for us at different shows that we attend and even that we host. This is a car that definitely gets its fair share of notice.
Yeah, behind the Camaro and the Mustang, you almost can't move at a car show without seeing at least one Chevelle.
Yeah, in fact, usually the Chevelle clubs show up in force, at least here in the Southern California area, and there are rows and rows of them. But you know what? Hey, kudos to them, because when you want a muscle car, if you want a car that really defines the 1960s muscle, either one of these two cars, whether it be the Dodge B-Body, that Charger, or this Chevelle SS, don't think you can find a better car. 1968 was in 1968, the only automatic transmission available for this car, for the SS lineup, was that Turbo 400. A lot of you folks will remember that trans. Very durable unit. The M21 Muncie 4-speed was the transmission that it seemed like most of the true enthusiasts opted for. Back in those days, with transmission technology still a little antiquated, I would have opted for the manual as well. Here today, obviously, transmissions have become so much more refined and improved that now I wouldn't choose the manual.
Now you just throw a DCT in it.
Yeah, absolutely. But now with the older 400, I definitely would have went with the manual. They also had an M22. That was the rock crusher unit. Many of our listeners may remember that. M22 was the straight cut gears, or what's called a spur cut on the gear. They were noisy as heck, but you simply could not beat them up. They were great at the racetrack. That was an option. And here's the thing. It was only available with a 396, but you had to order the car without air conditioning. I don't know why they were discriminating and hating on air conditioners back then, but if you had the air conditioner, you had to buy the M21. If you said, okay, I'll do away with the air conditioner, then you get the M22, which was the rock crusher, the race unit. Interesting. I don't know how or why or who decided to dice it up that way, but that's how it worked out.
Yeah, they figured, they're probably like, well, you got Windows,
Maybe, right. Hard to know how the heck that happened, but interesting. It's always been a bit of a curiosity for me. And then there were quite a few differential ratios available in 68, including, listen, there's a 456 and a 488. We ran with 411s in a Camaro that had an overdrive. Can you imagine a 488 in a 3-speed car? 45 miles an hour is your top speed. You're at 7,000 RPM, and you can almost run faster than that. But it must have been, well, again, you're coming off the line at an enormous rate of speed, but you get to 50, and that was about it. But another cool part of the 68 Chevelle was the interior, and to me, definitely timeless and classic. I love the dash layout. To me, when I look at it, and maybe you'll disagree, but more of like a cockpit, kind of an aviation kind of feel. I liked it. There were a couple of different iterations here. We had the large tack on the right, and we had the Speedo on the left. Some models had the tack between the Speedo and the clock, where it was kind of like right dead center with the steering wheel. But, I mean, either way, either dashboard, I really liked how Chevrolet designed the dash in 68.
Yeah, dash is definitely stellar, but I want to back up a minute. I heard you say that the horsepower was 375 in the base model, and what was the...
No, and that was in the 396 SS.
Oh, okay. What was the base model?
They even had a 6-cylinder. So the base model would have been the original 307 or even 327, and those were probably somewhere in the 240, maybe 225, something like that.
And then how does that compare to the Charger's base model?
Charger base model, same kind of situation.
Okay. Because I'm wanting to figure out who's scooting off the line faster.
Yeah, well, and
with that 488, I can't imagine the Chevelle would
not
be
going
a slug.
not going to put the 488 differential ratio in the base model.
Yeah.
And what I wanted to kind of do here today, I wanted to concentrate on the SS and the RT, but that's a good point that you bring up on the entry level models, which were essentially the same looking car, just drastically underpowered or less powered than the RT in the Dodge, and then in the SS with the Chevy. But interesting to me, probably would have been a 308 Freeway Flyer, and in 68 the Turbo 350 didn't exist yet. Turbo 350 didn't release until 1969. And then it was again redesigned in 1970. If you have a 1969 Turbo 350, that is a unique unit all by itself. Well, these SS models back in 1968 with the 396, $28.99. So just a bit different than, a bit less than the Dodge. But still, back then, $3,000 was no chump change back then, 1968. So I'll start with you. You and I, typically, I'll go first. I want to start with you this time. Between the Dodge B-Body, the Charger, and this Chevy Chevelle, if you got the keys to both in front of you, you can only take one set of keys home. Which one you going with?
It's tough because I feel like the Chevelle's getting up off the line a bit quicker. And I feel like the Chevelle's an overall better value, but I'm taking the Charger. It's hard, but it's easy, but it's difficult, but it's kind of a no-brainer.
Because is the Charger just raw muscle, dude?
It's just so
it's
cool.
Unbelievable.
And then I kind of go back to maybe I can pretend that I'm Vin Diesel. I don't look as good, but he had one. I wish I had his wallet.
Yeah, no doubt. Well, we got a little bit of a problem because we've got a two-way tie here in the studio. We'd love for you to let us know on our YouTube channel or on our Facebook page which one do you like. I just got to go with you, dude. That Charger, it would be as nice and as cool and as awesome and as fun and as any other word you could use, it would be to own that Chevelle. And I can't believe I'm saying this, an SS Chevelle. If you got the keys in front of me to both the Charger RT, either with the 440 or the 426, I don't care either way. I should rather have the 426, but even with the 440, there's just no way I could see my way clear to picking the keys up to the Chevelle when you got that B-Body. And forget about the value, even though the Dodge is going to sell for more because the Dodge is worth more. But let's value aside, just cool raw muscle. I mean, when you talk about muscle, a lot of guys, and myself included, will talk about a GTO, about how cool the GTO is, and what a poster child it is for muscle cars. The Dodge Charger, the 68 and 69 Chargers, even 70 for that matter, pretty hard to argue against that. But let us know which car you like best. Remember, if you've got an automatic transmission problem, there's only one place to go for the solution. It's an authorized ATRA member automatic transmission repair facility. ATRA's Golden Rule warranty, this is the best, most comprehensive warranty program on the planet, and it's available only from the Automatic Transmission Rebuilders Association. You can find them anytime at atra.com. Once again, atra.com. That's about all the time we have for this clash. Chris, this has been a blast. I tell you, in fact, if you want to send me the keys to that Dodge, I'll be more than happy to drive that thing home tonight. Other than for that, we'll work with something else. But we'll see you next time for another clash battle. In fact, I think we have a pretty cool conversation coming up next week with the DeLorean, I believe. I look at the schedule. Isn't it the DeLorean we're talking about?
I believe DeLorean's next, and it's going to be interesting because we're kind of removing the Clash a little bit from Clash of the Classics.
Okay, so we're just going to talk about the DeLorean only. I can't wait for that.
That's going to be fun.
Yeah, there really wasn't anything in that class for a couple of reasons. But anyways, we'll see you next time, folks. We are Horsepower for an hour. For Donnie and for Chris, have yourself a great week. See you next time.